Welcome to Ubidati Television, right here, and you know what program it is, The Possible Nigeria. My name is Kamsi, and of course I have the most delectable co-host, Ibe Chooks. I like the way you say that when you say it. Okay, welcome to this one, Ibe Chooks. It's Possible Nigeria, and today we're discussing the fight against corruption and the Peter Obi factor. You know, on the program, The Possible Nigeria, we look into dissecting some of the items that are already enshrined in the manifesto and take it bit by bit till it's very understood by the populace. And to every obedient who's out there listening right now, this is time to pay attention because we got a big dog, if I'm allowed to call him that, on the show today. One who is very experienced and is an outstanding obedient who has come out to clamor for a better Nigeria repeated times. We'll be doing a brief introduction shortly, but let me let you in on where our topic today was dubbed out from. On the third item of the manifesto, we stated that the plan for the Obidati presidency, or the Obidati movement rather, is to restructure the polity through effective legal and institutional reforms to entrench the rule of law aggressively and fight corruption aggressively, and also reduce cost of governance and establish an honest and efficient civil service. And hence, we dubbed our topic the fight against corruption and the Peter Obi factor today. So today we'll be speaking with Africa's foremost investigative journalist, one who has taken out time to, if I'm allowed to say, free the populace that have been ignorant of certain stories, and he has repeatedly put out stories with very evident claims and has been able to, to fact check his stories properly. I could go on and on and on, but I think the portfolio is a quite enormous one. On the show today we have David Hundeyin. David Hundeyin, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's beautiful to know that when I heard you were joining the show today, I knew it was going to be a very intense discussion because repeatedly we've seen how you've been able to push out the message to Nigerians, how Peter Obi is the most competent, and a lot of awakening should have most confessed, came from your ends. I just want you to give us a brief look into why your support for Peter Obi stands before we even get into the topic. Why did you start supporting Peter Obi?
So for me, it's a very simple calculation. There are three candidates on the ballots that I thought and that I think have a politically realistic shot at becoming president. Now, of those, to select from those three candidates is a simple process of elimination. Now, which of those candidates do I think, under no circumstances, should they be anywhere close to public office? I eliminated that one. Which of the remaining two candidates, which of them do I think either has too much to stake a claim for the presidency at this crucial time in Nigeria's history, at a time when Nigeria is practically insolvent and Nigeria needs a problem solver desperately? Eliminate, and then just for added justification, if you like, which candidate on the ballot has any sort of track record that indicates that this person knows how to grow an economy, which is something Nigeria desperately needs at this point in time. Somebody that understands what the purpose of governance is, that governance is about creating value and rendering service, not about self-aggrandizement and self-glorification and nothing else. And, creating avenues for personal enrichment and jobs for the boys, white elephant projects, that kind of thing. Which of the candidates has displayed an understanding of how to govern, how to raise human development indices, which are the holy grail of governance in a developing country? And it was very simple that of all the candidates on the ballot, there's only one that fits all these criteria, and that person happened to be Peter Obi. So it's not so much a case of even having a personal preference, because I think prior to this election cycle, I had never even met Peter Obi before. I didn't know that much about him. But when it came down to making a selection from three, And then one had to go into the history of each of these candidates to determine who is best suited to lead Nigeria at this crucial time. It was not a very difficult decision to make.
Okay. Now we've set a balance, and obviously you've been able to tell people how your principle of the Labour Party is definitely the best option, and not just the best option, the only option in this case that we have for a better Nigeria. Let us get straight into the discussion. Corruption is seen as the biggest problem of Nigeria, dating back to even 1999, when Obasanjo had his his seat or his fair share of the government. He also stated this as one of the best things that he was going to get into, which was the fight against corruption, to fight corruption. We had Goodluck Jonathan say the same. We had the current government, the Buhari government, say the same thing, that they are going to come in and fight corruption, which is going to be their number one policy, or number one thing to face squarely. But right now, we're in 2023, still campaigning for the same position for the government 24 years later, and we're still speaking about fighting something we've been claiming to fight over 20 years ago. So right now, what exactly do you think will be the change that Peter Obi will bring? Or if I should rephrase, taking out the change, what do you think that Peter Obi would do to fight corruption and, in this case, make it better?
So first of all, I think any candidates in an African setting who comes with a campaign message that says nothing but I'm coming to fight corruption, and the person doesn't have any sort of cogent plan or workable vision for what fighting corruption looks like, I think that candidate is basically wasting everybody's time. So I think that would account for the sort of failed projects that you referenced earlier. Where I think the Peter Obi candidacy differs is Peter Obi has not come making that the centerpiece of all that he has to offer. His campaign tagline is actually moving Nigeria from consumption to production, which means he understands very clearly that the very first layer in whether it's fighting corruption or whatever it is you're trying to do, the very first layer has to be improving the productivity of the country. Because when we talk about corruption in Nigeria, 99% of the time, what we're referring to in a government setting is basically embezzlement, it's theft, or something in that ecosystem. What causes this? Primarily, it's poverty or something derivative of poverty. It's always something within that ecosystem. It's either poverty in its visceral form, or it's something driven by poverty by 1 or 2 degrees of separation. That's what it always comes down to. So if you have somebody who understands how to grow an economy, how to make an economy more productive, how to essentially put more money legally into people's pockets, and how to make the economy a better machine at putting money into people's pockets legally, that in itself necessarily will drastically reduce corruption. I think it was Pat Tomi I was having this conversation with a couple of years ago. This was long before Peter Obi even emerged as a presidential candidate in this election cycle. And he made the point that a lot of us have the mistaken idea or the mistaken assumption that this thing called corruption is somehow endemic to Nigerians alone, or to Nigerians specially. That is something in Nigerian air or in Nigerian DNA that makes Nigerians more susceptible to corruption. Actually, that's not the case. Nigerians are rational people like everyone else. And the reason that corruption appears to have made such inroads into Nigerian popular culture and public life, and even the private sector, is because Nigerians are reacting to stimuli. The stimulus in this case is poverty. And when you are reacting to want, to lack of resources, lack of access, lack of opportunities, these are some of the ways in which humans rationally respond, which you perceive as poverty. So the first and most important thing to do in fighting poverty is to grow the economy, right? Okay. That's where most of what we perceive of as corruption comes from. And then after you've done that, then obviously you also have to make sure that there are penalties for those who still, because there'll always be few who, just being able to make money legally will still choose the legal route. And then you have to make sure that there are penalties in place that apply to them, and that they are actually applied. which he has also presented some sort of workable vision toward in his manifesto.
Yeah. Dave, let me pick it from there. You made mention of penalizing offenders, penalties to people who eventually default and all of that. There's been consequent talk about witch hunting, a rat chase, where we see a case of, the government using those bodies that are set up to be some form of, regulatory bodies towards all of this. We've seen cases where people claim that the EFCC is being used to witch hunt a particular, opposition candidates and all of that, and people should speak about that. In that case, we also have a pointer from the manifesto. I think that was point 5 under, the third highlight, and it says reviewing all the regulatory agencies in Nigeria with plan to gradually move away from the bureaucratic approach. And we believe in essence is, that there's going to be some sort of restructure in those agencies that have been used to regulate corruption in the past. Do you think this will be effective? And what kind of regulation are we looking to? And let's throw a better understanding on that.
So, in my opinion, one of the factors that hobbles the performance of some of these institutions that are supposed to fight against corruption in Nigeria is the fact that even constitutionally, their very existence is not properly established. So, if you recall, recently, I forget who it was. I remember it was a son. I forget exactly who it was, who made the point that actually, under the 1999 Constitution, the existence of an EFCC technically is actually unconstitutional. That the Constitution actually, a number of the functions that the EFCC carries out are actually supposed to be the exclusive preserve of states, federating units. But then the president in 2004, whenever it was, by executive, fiat, basically created the EFCC, forced it through the National Assembly. So you have several of these institutions which basically they wield power, but they wield it very, very subjectively, and they wield it almost in like very random ways, because in the first place, their very existence might not even have been properly established by the Constitution. So their very ability to act basically depends against who they're acting against. So if they try to flex their muscles and they go after somebody who maybe has the right connections or knows the right people or has the right amount of money in their bank accounts, they will suddenly find out that a lot of the powers that they had or that they thought they have, they actually don't have. And that's always a problem with these institutions in Nigeria, that basically because the very process of legislation and lawmaking is so fraught and it's so poorly done, you then find out that laws are basically applied very selectively.
Yeah.
So you might think that there's an ICPC, there's an EFCC, there's the police force. On paper, these things look watertight. If you do this, so and so agency will come after you. So such and such will happen to you. In practice, that's not how it is at all. In practice, there are all sorts of legal landmines which are made to understand were placed deliberately and strategically right from the point of legislation. So essentially, what's the word I'm looking for? Sabotage any potential future fight against corruption using these agencies that have been imperfectly and improperly set up. So anyone who wants to give these agencies or give the anti-corruption fight proper teeth has to start from the very first layer, which is the legislative process. Things have to be properly constitutionally done. So I know it's very tempting, especially as a Nigerian head of state who basically has almost the powers of a dictator, because bear in mind, the 99 Constitution was basically written by soldiers. So, even though it's a civilian democracy, the head of state, the president, still has a lot of discretionary power that they are free to wield as they see fit. But I think if Peter Obi were to come into office, I think he would, or at least he should, be wise enough to resist the temptation to use this power in the ways that people like Obasanjo used it, because it creates problems down the line. It might fix one or two problems in the short term, to just go after problems using executive fiat, using the power of the presidency. But all that does is that it kicks the can down the road, because who knows who the next president is going to be? Who knows if the president will share your perspective and your ideology and your viewpoints, and they can then use their power in the opposite direction, which has happened. So from the very first step, which is the legislative process, the legal backing given to these institutions, that has to be watertight to begin with. Everything has to be very clearly stated and explained. Who has what power? How can this power be used? In what jurisdictions can these powers be used? Are these powers shared with anyone else? And if so, how exactly is this the case? These are the issues that need to be addressed.
Okay, just quickly, still in the manifesto, I think that was point 7. Yes, point 7 on the highlight 3. Stated clearly about digitization of all government agencies. We've seen in recent times a government who doesn't appreciate, as this was social media, doesn't appreciate tech generally. We've seen a government that had to, put people off business on Twitter for over 200 days. And speaking about digitization of their own agencies now might even be a hard thing to swallow in this current government. But the Peter Obi government is talking about digitization as a modus operandi to, stop corruption in the economy, looking at all payments being made online and properly being accounted for online, and possibly accessibility by a regular, citizen, a regular Nigerian citizen like myself and yourself, being able to access those files and documents. To date, there are files that you can access. Speaking about the Lagos state government and how there been a freedom of information war in between and things like that. So we're looking at digitization of, as stated in that manifesto, the pact between Obidati and Nigerians. Do you think that digitization in government agencies will be easily accepted? And if yes, how do you think would be the best way possible to push forth in terms of stopping corruption and the fight against corruption?
So is it going to be easily accepted? Absolutely not, because obviously people within the public service have a large vested interest in maintaining the status quo. It's very easy to forget that government corruption in Nigeria has two types. There's the type that is enacted by politicians, and then there's the type that's enacted by civil servants. And I actually believe that which is enacted by civil servants is actually greater, both in an absolute numerical sense and in terms of impact and reach as well. Civil servants are a major stakeholder in the Nigerian status quo. So, but regardless of that being the case, I think technology is technology. Like, people always fight change. People always fight technology. And as I always like to say, in the entirety of known recorded human history, there has never been a successful defensive war. Never happened before. So change will always happen, whether people like it or not. And tech is one of those wonderful things that has a way of sweeping up everything in its path, whether people like it or not. Now, which is not to say that in itself, tech is some kind of what's the word I'm looking for now? Like it's magic. It's not, because even in the process of creating these tech-based solutions, there are always people who are always smart enough to sort of insert, backends and poison pills and backdoors into these software and applications to create other opportunities for new types of corruption. So a good example of this is the IPPIS system, which is now used to pay all federal government employees. The purpose of this system was to basically destroy the practice of employing large amounts of ghost workers for the purpose of extracting money from the federation accounts. And to an extent, it has been very successful. But on the other hand, what it has also done is that it has given people who have very high level access and very high level programming knowledge the ability to create their own ghost workers within the system now and make them almost undetectable. So that's like that's like another level of this problem now. So I think in setting up these tech solutions, first of all, I think the most important thing, and I'll keep on coming back to this, is the legislative part of this process. There are certain institutions in Nigeria that exist that are supposed to midwife the migration of the public sector from being a paper-based thing or being a sort of word-based thing to being a tech-based thing, right? There are institutions like NITDA, there are institutions like the NDPR, there's the Federal Ministry of Information and Communication. There are all sorts of these little institutions here, and there's some of which you never even heard of. But the problem with a lot of them is that they were basically set up almost as a direct copy of institutions that have been set up in places like the US and the EU. So, for example, the NDPR is almost like a word-for-word rip-off of the GDPR. So we literally just changed the G to N, like facsimile the entire legal, the entire legislative background of the GDPR. We basically facsimile it and then replaced the G with N and called it NDPR, Nigeria Data Protection Regulations. Meanwhile, a lot of these things have not been properly defined in Nigerian context. The constitutional backing that is supposed to give the agency behind NDPR teeth has not been established. In fact, who is supposed to enforce the NDPR? Is it NITDA? Is it the Federal Ministry of Information and Communication? Is it the other obscure agency that is? We don't know. So these are the problems. So there are all sorts of it's a minefield. Let me just put it that way.
Okay. Dave, please just hold the thought. So we want to go on a quick break. When we get back, we'll be looking into two more points from the manifesto as we speak about the fight against corruption. I'm still with David Hundeyin, an investigative journalist, Africa's foremost, I must say. Just go on a quick break and we'll be right back to still with Digitization Family Television.
Hello, this is my message to the Nigerian youths. I am glad that we have this great opportunity to discuss about the future of this country, Nigeria. Nigeria belongs to all of us, but to the youths most especially. I am super proud of what the youths have done, the realization that indeed the power lies with the youth. Indeed, successive governments and leadership have failed the youth. They've dismissed their capacity, the creativity, innovation. And this is why we are where we were. I am here to speak to you that not only am I proud of you, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, is super proud of you. We are proud of the movement you're leading and all the sacrifices being made for a better Nigeria. I can tell you, Peter Obi means well for Nigerian youths. He will run.
Welcome back to Digitization Family Television. The program is The Possible Nigeria. I am Kamsi, and still have David Hundeyin, an investigative journalist, with me right here. Okay, so back to our discussion on the fight against corruption, the P2B factor. We're taking a deep look into the manifesto and some of the points that have been highlighted there as tools to fight corruption. So, Dave, quickly, I just want to jump 2.9 on that manifesto, where there were three things stated there about speedy delivery of judgments. We also saw a point of digitization of court processes, and also allowing Nigerians in diaspora to take part in the election as well. That was also stated on that. Those were 3 points stated there. But let's think about digitization of court processes and also speedy delivery of judgment. Because we've seen a lot of times where people say in justice sometimes delay is actually denial of justice in some cases. So do you think these two policies especially will be very instrumental in fighting corruption in Nigeria?
Yes, absolutely. And the reason for that is very simple. And again, it goes back to this point I've made 2 times now, I believe, about the use of law being very sort of subjective and imperfect in Nigeria. It's very well known that depending on the amount of money you have, or the kind of lawyer you have, or the judge that you're able to get access to, or the court your case is heard in, that determines 90% of whether or not justice will be done in any case you're involved in Nigeria. So it's possible, for example, there's this thing called justice by technicality, which is a very bad habit that is practiced by a number of Nigerian lawyers and judges, where cases are decided based on all sorts of administrative chicanery. So you might just file one injunction after another. You say, oh, this court isn't qualified to hear this suit. And then that mini suit is heard for 3 months, and then the case is adjourned. You can keep adjourning a case like that for 5, 6, 10 years if you like. There are some cases that have been dragging on for 25 plus years, right? That even the people involved in the case have died, and the case is still in court, right? So obviously, that cannot be justice. As you rightly said, justice delayed is actually justice denied. So, anyone who is able to fix that problem, using some frameworks which have been adopted elsewhere in the world, by the way, which makes it mandatory for certain matters to be heard within a certain time frame, especially for issues which are, quote unquote, minor. So, for example, I forget the statistics. I don't have the exact statistics to hand, but it's estimated that in the Nigerian prison system, at least 60% of the people in the Nigerian prison system are actually there on remand awaiting trial. Surely that can't be right if the majority of the prisoners held in Nigerian prisons haven't actually been convicted of a crime yet. And the majority of them are there simply because they don't have the money to basically expedite hearing of their case. So if these issues can be fixed using legal instruments that by law, cases have to be heard within a certain amount of time, have to be resolved within a certain amount of time, there are multiple birds that will be killed with that one stuff.
Okay, there's a whole lot to be said, and I wish we had so much time to discuss at length, where we can look at the manifesto in totality, and hopefully we might have David sometime. I know you're very busy and you've got a very tight schedule, but hopefully we could have you back some other time, so we could do more enlightening on, to people who are watching, our viewers, and we speak in totality of Peter Obi's ambition. But right now, David, I know you're permit you to say a serial writer. You're seasoned with writing journals and reports and all that. But right now, we're getting closer, and we're expecting a book from you. So just tell us, give us more insights on that, your book launch and how it's going.
Right. So I'm in Oxford right now. Later today, I'm attending the official launch of my book. It's called The Jungle, A Personal Journey with the Enfant Terrible of Nigerian Journalism. So basically this book is a compendium of some of my work with some personal commentary from me, and as the name implies, it's a personal journey. So it's a book that is telling my story, but is using some of the stories that I have told as a sort of storytelling device. So basically, you get to find out a bit about me and what I have been going through at different points in my life, using some of the stories that I've written, principally, from the past 3 or 4 years of my journalism career, because that's when a lot of this stuff has happened. So it's been published by Abibman Publishing in partnership with the University of Oxford. The launch is taking place later today at the Faculty of Medieval Languages. So I'm hoping that everyone who is able to gets a copy, and those who have registered should show up at the event. I'm going to be signing free copies. And yeah, so basically, this is sort of my crowning publication to date. So
tell us about availability. How can people watching now get it? People interested, how can they get it?
So later today, I'm going to be putting up a link to Amazon.co.uk where you can actually buy the book. So I'm going to put up a link to the book on my Twitter and my Instagram as well, so you can find it there.
Okay.
And it's also available in most major UK bookshops.
Okay, okay. Oh, thank you so much, David Hundeyin. It's really been an honor to have you on the show and, dissecting topics like this. And like I said, I hope if time will permit you, you could some other time stop by on Obidati Television and educate our viewers more on why this movement is not just a fluke and why better Nigeria is what we need at this time and not just playing the usual tribal and religious politics that a lot of politicians expect that Nigerians keep playing forever. So thank you so much, David. It's been an honor having you on the show, The Possible Nigeria. From myself and Obidati television team, thank you so much. And we wish you best of luck. And with your book launch today, it's definitely going to turn out well, definitely. And I'm hoping to get a copy of the book and look into it and read some of your works. I've enjoyed the conflicts from jihad and all of the works that you've put out. But right now, having a compendium of all those works, and it's really going to be a wonderful read, and definitely we'll look to get in that. So thank you, viewers. It's still Data Television. The Possible Nigeria is still on, and when we get back, we'll be doing a roundup on the show today. Please don't go nowhere.
Hello, this is my message to the Nigerian youths. I am glad that we have this great opportunity to discuss about the future of this country, Nigeria. Nigeria belongs to all of us, but to the youths most especially. I am super proud of what the youths have done, the realization that indeed the power lies with the youth. Indeed, successive governments and leadership have failed the youth. They've dismissed their capacity, the creativity, innovation. And this is why we are where we were. I am here to speak to you that not only am I proud of you, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, is super proud of you. We're proud of the movement you're leading and all the sacrifices being made for a better Nigeria. I can tell you, Peter Obi means well for Nigerian youths. He will run a youth-inclusive government and purposeful leadership that will usher in a new dawn for generations to come. Job issues, unemployment, and indeed all the other hazards that we face as a younger generation, I believe will be a thing of the past, at least reduced significantly. I'm here to remind you that we are the last lap of this race when we all need to come to the consciousness that the effort we're going to put in the next coming weeks can change our trajectory completely and positively. So I want to urge you, do what you can to keep on the fight until a better Nigeria is achieved. You need to make sure.
Obidati Family Television, the program is Possible Nigeria. My name is King Kamsi, and obviously Chooks is right beside me. That was an amazing interview with David Hundeyin, looking at corruption in Nigeria and how Peter Obi, our principal, the presidential candidates for the Labour Party, is coming in to fight corruption and give us a better Nigeria that we need. So right now, Chooks, speaking, looking at everything David has talked about, what struck me the most was when we spoke about, the regulatory bodies that are being put in place and how we need to restructure these regulatory bodies. Because these days we've seen that most of the time when people or when these bodies, the EFCC, is chasing a particular person, is always somebody from the opposition, party, and we never see people who are in the ruling party being, sent to prison or being chased by the EFCC for one fraud case or the other. It is always people on the opposition party. So most of these are.
Sorry, I think, like you mentioned, starting with EFCC, there's been this continuous accusation that is a weapon by the current administration or the incumbent administration at any point used to witch hunt the opposition. And well, I think David gave an insight in that, and the complication when it comes to even constitution, how constitutionally right it is to have these agencies. Well, we are hoping for change. We are looking forward to a better Nigeria, of course, and that P2B will come in. And if these agencies need to be revalued or re-examined or anything, there is need to reposition them or restructure them. Yeah. So then I think he would do that. He knows what's best. He wants to fight corruption, and I think he has done it when he was governor of Anambra State. And I'm very much confident he will do it as presidency. So we're hoping for the best from him.
Okay, yes, definitely. Nigeria has always been a country of hope, and at this time, this is one of the last streaks, you know, and Nigerians have never been this excited for a forthcoming election. A lot of Nigerians are eager to go on that day and exercise their rights to vote. It's less than 28 days from today. The election is coming, and it's coming really closer. On the 25th, we're all going to be gathering at our polling units, different polling units, to exercise our right to vote. I hope you have your permanent voter's card already. If you don't, please go pick it up, and you know where your thumb's supposed to be, or your index finger. You know, if you have a big thumb, your index finger will make place, you know, and you thumbprint on the part where you see the Labour Party logo that consists of a family. That's a mother, a father, and a child. There, you guys place your finger there, and that's it. That's the way you need to vote. And also make sure you educate someone around you today about Peter Obi, and let them know that Peter Obi is the man for the job. You can follow us on all our social media platforms at Obi Dati Family Television. If you want to speak to us, you have a group, you know, a support group that you are working with that's taking the gospel to different nooks and crannies of the nation. We want to speak with you. All you need to do is hit us on our social media, or call us on WhatsApp, or text us on WhatsApp as well, and we are going to get you on and speak with you as well. And also let us know what you've been facing in those areas where you're preaching the gospel. Our principal wants to hear from you. Mr. Peter Obi wants to hear from you. Yusuf Dati Baba Ahmed wants to hear from you. And they are really grateful for all the work you do. Thank you so much for tuning in on this edition of The Possible Nigeria. My name is Kamsi, and for myself and Chooks.
Sure. See you same time tomorrow.
Yeah, same time tomorrow. Thank you so much.
That you actually the one running for presidency, just using Peter Obi and Dati Baba Ahmed as symbol. We are coming for a better Nigeria. This is time to vote for Labour Party. The logo is Papa, Mama, Pikin, or LP. On that day, come out in mass, show your energy, show your creativity, do everything you need to do positively to make sure your votes count. That means wait until the end. I am thankful to God for what the Nigerian youths are doing. God bless you all. Thank you.